Hi, Mike Kennedy with you. Monday Muslim. What we want to just mention now is there's a book called The Critical Quran. It's produced by Dr. Robert Spencer. He studied Islam extensively. I have one of his books called Was Muhammad Real? The second edition. So basically, if you get a modern Bible, there are footnotes. What do the footnotes include? They include explanations, references to other parts of the scripture, and they'll also tell you some inconsistencies sometimes. They might say, oh, this verse isn't found in all the copies, the manuscripts, but they'll have, critique, not in the sense of saying it's wrong, but in the sense that you'll understand the process that they went through. In other words, a line that isn't in all of the manuscripts is still put in and maybe noted. And so, and some of these notes are really extensive, like the New American Bible and the New International Versions, which are the most recently translated from the original text, will have a lot of footnotes in them. Well, the Quran doesn't do it this way, and so Robert Spencer decided to put out a Quran with critical view of it. In other words, critiquing it with the idea of showing, referencing different scriptures within the Quran, but also pointing out inconsistencies. In other words, there are whole entire surahs or chapters that were disputed even at the time of Muhammad with his own reciters, the people that would recite this, because originally the standard narrative is that the Quran was meant to be memorized, not necessarily written down. But, there are chapters in there that some of the prominent people mentioned in the Quran didn't want in the Quran. So, in other words, this would footnote a certain section and say, so-and-so, so-and-so, there was a disagreement about having this entire chapter. And I'm sure, too, it references within itself for inconsistencies, probably. In other words, in the beginning of you can't really say the beginning, but let's put it this way. In the earlier verse that was written about Christians and Jews, it says they're people of the book and they'll go to heaven. Later on, this is supposedly only this 20-year period. After the Quran and Allah put their stamp of approval on the Christians and Jews because they have the Torah and the Gospel. In some places, where people are told if you have a dispute about some of those things, go to the Christians and the Jews because they have the books. They have the Torah and the Gospel. So, like I say, later on in the chronology of how the Quran is written, we eventually get to slay all unbelievers. It's basically a convert or die. Then there's a convert or be levied this, really high tax, or extortion, I would call it. So, you pay this and you don't get killed. But, so anyway, that's what this volume attempts to do, is put together a large body of information on maybe difficult passages in the Quran, maybe contradicting, and ones that aren't perfectly preserved. Because just, you've heard me harp on this before, but one of the big things with Muslims evangelizing people, they don't use the word evangelism, they call it dawah. But in this process of dawah, one of the main things today that is used is, for these 1400 years, Allah has kept the Quran perfectly preserved. There's not one dot, one letter, one sound out of line. And all Qurans everywhere are exactly the same because Allah's word can't be corrupted. Well, this book attempts to show the actual differences in different manuscripts, where different Qurans came from and things like that. So it's very enlightening. I'm going to have a link below to David Wood talking about it, and it's like a $40 hardcover book. I think I read the Kindle version was $15, but I eventually would like to get the hard copy and read that and look at the footnotes, because the Quran is extremely difficult to read because it's scattered. In other words, there might be something about Abraham here, and there might be something about him over here, and then something here, but they're not in chronological order necessarily. When we pick up scriptures, we're used to, like if you read a gospel, it's the story of Jesus' birth to his death and resurrection. And it's kind of pretty much in order, although there are some flash forwards and flashbacks in the story, but they're not interspersed in random, seemingly conversations, just like morality issues just seem to be plugged in certain places in the Quran, and they don't really relate to the context that they have. So, what can you say? That's the way it is. And I think this Quran will be very useful for people, and hopefully Muslims will get it and look at it, because Muslims are extremely devout, okay? And if they could see for themselves that what they've been told about the Quran is not true, they leave Islam. And we find that young Muslims today, 25% of them are leaving the faith, and it is primarily due to them studying the Quran. In other words, they've been told certain things about the Quran. Some of them memorize the Quran, but that's different than trying to understand it. So I think this will be an interesting book for both Christians, Jews, and Muslims to read and look at. Bye.